Good afternoon and welcome to this new installment of Machiavelli Talks by the Machiavelli Center for Political and Strategic Studies. Today our guest is Dr. Balázs Orbán from Hungary, Minister of State for Parliamentary and Strategic Affairs, Deputy Minister of Prime Minister's Office and Chairman of the Board of Mathias Corvinus Collegium Foundation. Dr. Orbán, it's a great pleasure to have you with us.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. I hope
you
can see me.
Yes, we can hear you very well. Here with me also Marcell Dengi, student at the Mathias Corvinus Collegium and former MCC Fellow at the Machiavelli Center. Good afternoon, Marcell.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation.
So, Dr. Orbán, a new Hungarian legislation harshening penalties for pedophiles and banning pornography and gender homosexual propaganda to children has sparked an intense quarrel with some other members of the European Union. Some media outlets also suggest that the dispute is linked to a recent slowdown in the approval of Hungarian recovery plan by the EU Commission, whose President von der Leyen called the law a disgrace. Could you explain us what are the contents of that law, and did you expect such an outburst of hunger from abroad?
Yes, of course. It's a very sad story what is going on right now on a European level. There are very many accusations, misunderstandings in connection with the new anti-pedophilia law. Obviously, the main goal of the new Hungarian law is to protect our children and set stricter penalties for sexual offenders. In this spirit, the Hungarian penal code will become stricter in the case of sexual offenders, with penalties increasing and no statute of limitation for the most serious pedophilia crimes. Moreover, the register of pedophilia offenders will be created, just like we have these kind of registers in various European and Western European and Western countries, to help prevent them from working in jobs where they could meet and work together with the children. And there is another part of this new Hungarian legislation which clearly states that the sexual education of children can be only decided by the parents. So every type of sexual propaganda should be banned for children in schools. That's the main reason behind and argumentation behind the legislation. It has nothing to do with homosexual people. It has nothing to do with homosexual or transgender or LGBTQ adult people. Still, everybody has the freedom to decide the sexual orientation. The only thing what is required from this point by the law is that any type of sexual propaganda should be banned in school and should be very restricted in media, and the education in connection with the sexual orientation should be decided by the parents and not by the state, not by the NGOs, not by the school leadership. So it's a family protection and children protection type of law. There is an ongoing international relation. We should be not surprised by the really groundless accusation of left liberal politicians, media outlets, and NGOs. That's a usual scenario. We get used to it. It's part of an ongoing attacks on the Hungarian government because of our conservative policies. We believe in nation state. We believe in sovereignty. We believe in traditional families, and we want to protect them, even when it seems that the mainstream agenda goes completely different direction. That's how I would describe you very shortly what the new law is about.
Well, previously Hungary also in some moment threatened to veto the European Union budget because of its linking with the respect for the rule of law. Why Budapest felt threatened by such mechanism? Is it really because you dislike rule of law, as many media, especially in Western Europe, told their public, or there's something else?
No, obviously it's not the reason. We Hungarians, we do believe in rule of law. We do believe in democracy. We do believe in parliamentarism. Our constitutional heritage is a freedom-based heritage, and it's quite long heritage. We are 1,000 years old state, and during that period of times when the Hungarian state was independent, it was always a state which provided security, prosperity, and freedom for those who were living under the reign of this Hungarian state. Sometimes in our historical past, we were occupied by foreign forces, and they imported some ideology, and they were against freedom. So it's not the Hungarian state and not the Hungarians who were against these ideas, but just the opposite. They were the ones who were fighting for these values in the last 100 years. You used the phrase rule of law mechanism and rule of law problems, but it's just phrasing. It's political phrasing. The accusations which are coming from Brussels, they have nothing to do with rule of law and nothing to do with all the legal constitutional principles. I'm also a constitutional lawyer, so I know at least something about what rule of law means and what it's not part of the rule of law. And according to my understanding, migration, LGBTQ propaganda, anti-family policy measures are not part of the shouldn't be part of the rule of law debates. But in reality, the truth is that currently there is a leftist liberal majority in the European Parliament, and sometimes other European institutions are acting in favor of this leftist liberal opposition, whose are backed by leftist liberal mainstream NGOs, and they attack Hungary and all the right-wing conservative political forces through these EU mechanisms. So we don't have any problem with rule of law, but we do have problem with double standard. We do have a problem with nonsense accusations. We do have problem with undermining all the values which can put together or bring together or keep together the European countries for political reasons. That's what's currently doing, and that's why we had to stop these initiatives last year when we were against the rule of law mechanisms. Currently, we see that right now the budgetary issues should be finished, so there should be no more debate on budgetary issues and on the next generation fund issues. But what a surprise, after the anti-pedophilia law came into force, Brussels reopened the case. So currently we have a budgetary debate, But everybody knows that the debate is not about whether the Hungarian recovery plan is suitable or not, because everybody knows it's suitable, but it's about that Hungary should follow the mainstream argumentation about LGBTQ propaganda, about migration issues, and all the various politically heavily debated issues in Europe. So it can be part of the double standards, it can be part of the political pressure making, but you know, we Hungarians are really got used to it in the last 1,000 years, and we know that we have to protect our interests very closely and cannot let anybody else dictate from outside. These decisions should be made by the Hungarian voters, not by politicians from different countries through European institutions.
Very clear. And after Fidesz left the EPP, the European People's Party, Prime Minister Orbán met in Budapest with Poland's Mateusz Morawiecki and Italy's Matteo Salvini, and more recently with other 15 European parties. Fidesz has signed a joint declaration against a federal European Union. How your idea Europe looks like, and which will be Fidesz's next moves on the international stage, particularly in the European Parliament?
Since decades, the EU, the European integration is an ongoing intellectual fight between two different forces. One group of people, one group of politicians, one group of nations are saying that the European integration should be a platform and an agenda to have a supranational federalistic European state. There are some other players, some other politicians, some other nations, some other group of thinkers who are saying exactly the opposite, that the European integration should remain an equal cooperation for all the nation states. And the nation states are not part of Europe's past, but just the opposite. They are part of Europe's future. And really, since the 50s, there is an ongoing intellectual fight between the two ideas, and the success of the European integration was always that there could build a balance between these two different ideas could be built among the players. So there was always compromise, there was always solidarity, there was always joint decision making, and that's how the European integration could survive, could emerge, and could come out stronger from the crisis what European integration, European countries had to survive in the decades. But currently, it seems that those forces who are saying that they are fed up with the idea of sovereignty nation state, they are fed up with the idea of right-wing conservative political forces who are saying that religion is still important, family is still important, sovereignty is still important, borders are still important, and they want to, they really try to get rid of these forces. And currently all the political forces in the European Parliament, the left-leaning parties, the liberals, the Greens, the socialists, and even the EPP parties, they represent the same ideas, and they push forward the agenda, which are saying that, you know, the power should be transferred from nation states towards supranational entities, and there is no real political representation on the European level for those forces who are saying the opposite. Although if you look on the public opinion polls, which are available and which are trying to tell something about how the grassroots European voters are thinking about the current stage of European integration and the future of European integration, the majority of the grassroots European voters, they want to go to the opposite direction. So on a European political representation level, those who are in favor of the super state of Brussels, they have a serious, at least 80% majority in the European parliamentary level. Meanwhile, the grassroots European voters, at least 60% of them in Hungary, in Italy, in the Netherlands, in Spain, they are saying exactly the opposite, that they want to preserve the idea of nation state. They want to keep the European integration as a platform for cooperation for these nation states, and they do believe in the values which I mentioned previously. So the problem is that they don't have any strong political representation on the European level and on the European parliamentary level. And since we made the decision to leave the EPP because it became pretty much obvious that the EPP goes so follows the lead of the leftist, liberal, green political forces. So there is no difference between EPP and leftist, liberal parties on the European level. We had to leave the EPP, and we very open to formulate an alliance and start negotiations and at least understand each other much better with those political forces who are in the European Parliament and who and those parties want to obviously create a different path for European integration. And right now there is an ongoing debate about the future of Europe, which was started by the Commission. It was supported by the Council. So we are really happy to share our values about the future of Europe, and we want to be involved in the discussion. And we welcome all the other parties who support the ideas of Fidesz and can formulate right now an informal platform, which was represented by the declaration you mentioned in your question. But according to my understanding and hope, it is only the beginning of something, not the end of anything.
Speaking of European future, Western civilization appears held in the grip of mass immigration from other continents and a rampant cancel culture which aims to destroy its history and its heritage. Do you feel we are in the midst of a crucial time, and how can we fight against those threats?
No, Europe is in a, I agree with you, Europe is in a, so we are in a serious problem. All the data, all the numbers, all the figures, all the statistics are saying that currently on a geopolitical state, we are losing weight. We are left behind by the United States, by China, by all the other rising powers. The importance and the geopolitical impact of Europe, it's not rising, it's just the opposite, it's declining. And I'm not the only one who is saying that, but I have to refer again to the public opinion polls which are available. All these public opinion polls are saying that the majority of grassroots European voters are pessimistic about the future of Europe and pessimistic about their children's generation. So how they will live their lives in the European continent, whether it will be a better place for them for the children, or a worse place, or a bad place for the children. And currently the majority of the European voters are pessimistic, so they are saying that Europe will be not a better place, but just the opposite for the next generation. I think as a politician that this is a serious challenge, and we have to find an answers. And currently in Brussels, what we keep hearing is that they denying the problem. So they are saying that everything's all right. The only answer to all these problems is to be united, follow the same direction. And, you know, we are in an era of globalization, so global challenges should be followed by global answers. But it's not so simple. That's not who we are. That's not how the European continent used to work in the last couple thousand years. We are very different in various regards. There was always an ongoing competition between, which was a healthy competition between the players in the European continent. And there are some issues where we cannot cooperate, and there are some issues where we can cooperate. And intellectually, that's the most interesting part of the story, how to differentiate between those issues. So I'm not, as a Hungarian, I don't want to convince, for example, Sweden or Germany or other countries to follow, for example, in connection with migration, the policy which was set up by Hungary a couple of years ago. So I'm not saying that they should follow they should go to our direction. They should follow us. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that they go to that direction. That's their decision making. Swedish people, German people, they have the right to vote. Those countries are independent countries, and the governments should take the responsibility. But it has to be work just in the opposite way as well, that it shouldn't be dictated from Brussels or from any other European capitals how the Hungarian migration policy should look like. And currently, what migration policy we have, which is zero tolerance on illegal migration, it's backed by 80% of the Hungarian voters. So our responsibility in the government is to represent this opinion of the Hungarian grassroots voters, even on a political level, even on a European level, and even if it is it not welcomed by some of the Brussels politicians or bureaucrats. But that's our duty, that's our responsibility. So I think probably you will say that it's not a very common topic that I'm raising, but right now intellectually the most important task for European Union and for the European member states and for those politicians who are operating in Brussels to realize in which areas the European countries can cooperate and should be cooperate, and this cooperation can change totally the direction where the European Union compared to different power headquarters and on the globe, so compared to them, where the European Union goes. And should be realized that there are some areas where we cannot cooperate because the differences are so big. But it's part of the European culture. It's part of how we build together the European integration. So it's not a problem. Obviously, it seems that the migration is an issue where there are some disagreement among the member states. It should be tolerated. We tolerate the opinion of others. Others' opinion should also we tolerate the opinion of others, and other players should also tolerate Hungarian different opinions. And the European Union and the Brussels institutions should create a platform for equal discussions about these issues, which is right now not the case, because it's part of the political pressure making on those countries who think differently. And this will in long term undermine, again, European solidarity.
There are opinions, but there are also facts, and effect are the growing numbers of arrivals of migrants on Italy's seashores that are currently sevenfold than that of 2019, when Matteo Salvini was Interior Minister. Are you worried by the numbers, considering also that many are calling for a distribution of those migrants among all European Union countries?
No, I am very worried. What we see is that on the Western Mediterranean route, Central Mediterranean route, Eastern Mediterranean route, the Balkanic route is again more active than it used to be. So thousands and thousands of desperate people trying to reach the European continent through illegal ways. And I really want to show and express my solidarity towards Italy. The migration pressure is very heavy on your coast. It's really a serious pressure, and I think how Matteo Salvini, as a foreign minister, tried to stop the illegal migration boats. It's a role model for. It should be a role model for other European countries. Obviously, it's quite similar to what we try to set up as a defense mechanism against illegal migration. The only exception is that you have sea coastals. I mean, you have sea borders and we have land borders. But the idea behind is it's very similar. Effectively fighting against illegal migration. What we don't believe in is that we do not believe that distribution of the migrants is a solution. We think that it's part of the problem, and these migrants shouldn't be redistributed or distributed by European countries, but they should be stopped and they should be sent back to the countries of origin. Currently, those who are arriving, at least 90% of those who are reaching the Italian coast, they are not refugees, they are economic migrants. So I think there should be a legal system, an institutional system, and a border protection system which has the capability of stopping the boats and stopping the migrants before they reach the territory of the European Union. Because then if they reach the territory of any European Union countries, and then we start discussing whether they should be redistributed or distributed or not, then we are in a serious crisis. So those illegal migrants should be stopped in Northern Africa, in Turkey, and in those countries where they are coming from, countries of origins, in Sub-Saharan Africa, in the Middle East, and in Central Asia. And I think the responsibility, which should be shared by all the European countries, is that you have to focus on the serious humanitarian problems, what we have in these countries, what we have in these areas. I used to work for a Hungarian think tank. It was called Migration Research Institute, and I had the privilege, and it was part of my job, to visit all these places. So in the last 5-6 years, I visited all the important, from a migration point of view, all the important countries. Very many of the countries of origins, like Libya, like Nigeria, like Iraq, like Bangladesh, like Syria, like all these places, and I know very well that the situation there is not good. There are serious humanitarian issues, but these serious humanitarian issues shouldn't be managed in Italy, shouldn't be managed in Hungary, or shouldn't be managed in Germany. They should be managed in that territories or in the neighboring countries. And the international responsibility for the developed part of the world is to put resources, put money, and put support into these problem-solving mechanisms. Hungary, I think, is doing quite a good job. There is a program, a governmental program, a large-scale program, which is called Hungary Helps Program. And the idea behind it is that we have to understand what are the real needs of those communities who are there in the transit countries or the countries of origins, and we have to communicate directly with that local small communities and with the leaders of these communities, and ask them how we can help to keep the community there intact. And sometimes these communities are led by church people, and they know it very well. What are the real needs of the people? They need either a school or some hospitalization, or they need to have houses rebuilt. And the Hungarian government is not giving money to international organizations who, I don't know what they do with the money. We don't give our money to international NGOs. We don't give our money to governments, but we do give our money directly to those local communities. So in the last couple of years, we could help at least 30,000-40,000 people not to make a decision to move on and, give the money to the human smugglers and risk their life and start a new life in Europe, but remain in the countries of origin and try to survive there. And I think Europe should go to that direction. Right now, what comes from Brussels, I can see how the Italian government is acting on these issues. I can see how other governments are thinking about this issue. So I can't see currently any single European way which fits for all European countries. So if there is a government or a country which needs to have the help of Hungary to stop the illegal migrants either on seas or either on lands, then Hungary will definitely on that country's side.
And let's go back inside the borders of Hungary, obviously legally, because Hungary is approaching a parliamentary election in the first half of 2022. And in a try to avoid a fourth term for Viktor Orbán, opposition parties have formed a very composite coalition ranging from the far left to the far right of Jobbik. But according to the polls, the race is open. Are you confident in a victory of Fidesz, and which type of electoral campaign should we expect?
As you mentioned, the race is open. There is a vivid parliamentary democracy in Hungary, but I am confident we have the capability of winning the elections. I think the reason behind it is that Fidesz and the governing parties, they have a vision on Hungary's future. We have our values. We are ready to protect and to represent on a European and an international level in these values, and we are really working hard on building bridges between the political elite and the grassroots voters of Hungary. So we really try to find some agreement points, general agreement points with the Hungarian society. I use this term because I don't want to use some ideological or party political term, because it's more than that. It's about that there are some national minimums in the Hungarian society. It doesn't matter which political group you belong to, which political group you support, but there is a national minimum. And I think there are some national minimums which are right now represented by the government. The importance of sovereignty, as I mentioned, importance of families, importance of local communities, importance of tax cut, importance of full employment, importance of strengthening middle class and supporting Hungarian companies. So I think we have some good points to convince the Hungarian voters to keep supporting us. And as you mentioned, we have a so-called rainbow coalition against us. It's not only a symbolical term, but there is a huge problem with this coalition. You mentioned in this coalition the Jobbik, which is a clear-cut, radical, anti-Semitic, racist party with the same representatives as they had a couple of years ago. They are also in that cooperation. Meanwhile, some of the leftist liberal political forces accusing the government to be anti-Semitic. So it's really a crazy nonsense situation. And in this rainbow coalition, from the leftist liberal side, there is technically the leader of this coalition is Ferenc Gyurcsány, who is the former prime minister of Hungary. He used to be the prime minister between 2004 and 2009, and technically he was the one who ruined the country economically, and his neoliberal policies really caused serious social and economic problems, and it was a nightmare and a disaster for Hungarian voters. So in 2022, he will again be the leader of the opposition, which is not a very favorable situation for many of the Hungarian voters. And I would like to add just one more point. Economy is important, post-COVID recovery is important, and we put a lot of efforts into strengthening our economy. We put a lot of money into investment during the crisis period of time. So Hungarian crisis management wasn't about using helicopter money, but the opposite, to put money into investment and supporting directly local companies, small and medium-sized companies. And that's the reason why we are waiting for really a huge GDP growth in this year and in the upcoming year in 2022 as well. So there is no big success. That is our strategy, and we will fight very hard on convincing the Hungarian voters that that with this type of opposition, Hungary would turn toward a very negative direction. So we encourage them to keep the support, and then hope that we will have the next 4 years mandate after the elections.
Marcell, so you're a student at the Mathias Corvinus Collegium headed by Dr. Orbán, and recently you have completed a visiting period as MCC Fellow at the Machiavelli Center. Would you tell us something about your experience with the MCC?
Yes, of course. MCC is an institution that provides additional courses and also a bunch of opportunities if you're a university student. So I'd confidently say that MCC is the best thing that can happen to you if you're a university student in Hungary, as it was for me. Mr. Balázs Orbán, in his interviews, usually refers to MCC as a fast track or a fast lane for students, but I would refer to MCC also as an amplifier, because if you have any ambition, they will support you. You can search for professors, they will provide you with knowledge, they will provide you with opportunities. And this is how I actually got to Italy, to the Center Studi Machiavelli, with the program, because I had the ambition to try myself out as a researcher and also as a journalist. And this is what I could do in Machiavelli. And with your supervision and mentorship, I could write over 10 articles and small researches. And also I could conduct my own research for MCC about the Italian economy. I had the opportunity to meet several government officials and also researchers who helped me a lot and who showed me the direction of where I should go with my research, and also provided me a lot of useful information. Overall, MCC is a really great institution, and I'd suggest that more students should enroll in this institution, and Mr. Balázs Orbán is making this available because MCC is opening a bunch of new institutions all over Hungary, and I'm confident that it will be great for Hungary. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Marcell. Dr. Orbán, it appears to me that the MCC is a very good initiative launched by Hungary to train a future leadership nurtured on patriotic values. Could you explain how it works and what is its aim?
Yes, and thank you very much, Marcell, for these nice words. Obviously, we have such talented students as Marcell, and our only goal is to give them as much opportunity as it is possible. As it was mentioned, MCC is not a university, not a high school, not an elementary school. It's a talent management program which goes directly and targets directly the most talented Hungarian students. The educational program is free, so you don't have to pay for it. And it starts at the age of 10. So you can start MCC program in the age of 10. And there is a high school element of this program, and there is a university element of this program, and obviously there is a doctoral and postdoctoral alumni element of the program. So it's we believe in the idea of lifelong learning, and MCC as a community supports the most talented Hungarian people from all around the Carpathian Basin since the age of 10 until their retirement. That's the idea behind it. That's a very special Hungarian type of program. You can find, there is no role model. So it's a mixture of different type of programs which are available in different countries all over the place. But as a complex program, as we have MCC from like 25 years in Hungary, it's really a special situation. And last year we got very serious support from the Hungarian Parliament, financial support from the Hungarian Parliament, so we could horizontally and vertically increase our capacities. And in the upcoming years, we will have 10,000 students in at least 35 places all over the Carpathian Basin. So I'm not talking about the territory of Hungary, but we will have also talent management centers in Slovakia, in Ukraine, in Romania, Serbia, even in Austria, and even some Western European countries as well. And we have two goals or two idea behind our program. There is nothing to do with party politics, but it has a lot to do with patriotism. So we believe in the idea of patriotism, and it's not a political or a party political term. It's a national term that we have an independent country, and the most talented people should take part on leading the country. And it's especially the case if we talk about the future generations, future leaders of Hungary, not only political leaders, but economic leaders, cultural, business leaders. And these young people should be part of the community which believe in Hungary. That is a country which is worth to, fight for. I'm not telling it fight for it directly, but intellectually, and it's worth to work for this country. And the other idea what we have is meritocracy. So the most talented people should be in the program, and the highest quality education should they get. And if we are able to compare these two ideas, to put together the idea of local patriotism, the idea of believing in the future of Hungary, and high quality meritocratic tutorial type of education where the best people educate from all over the world our students, then we are on a good track. So currently we are working on set up this institution with this larger scale, and we are very thankful to your institution as well that we can right now I can say that we can regularly send students to learn more about Italian politics and how you look on the world and the future of European integration and the future of our country's cooperation. I am really thankful for that.
Well, it's a pleasure and an honor for the Machiavelli to regularly cooperate with the MCC, even because of the very important and crucial role the MCC has not only in Hungary but also in Europe to contrast the cultural hegemony by I wouldn't say the left, because I want to respect your indication to not be political, but let's say by unpatriotic forces. So we are at the end of our talk.
I call these forces the mainstream.
The mainstream, okay.
That's what you hear everywhere. So we don't want to create another mainstream, but we want to preserve the idea of pluralism, especially in higher education. Because right now what we see in Western universities and some American universities is just the opposite. That currently liberalism is undermining the pluralism of opinions, and we want to restore them. So every opinion in MCC, every different opinion is welcome. Debates are welcome there, but this will not be, this institution will not be the representative of the current mainstream paradigm, which is denying the difference of opinion and denying the freedom of expressing them.
Whereas pluralism is a core value for democracy and also for liberalism in a European sense, not obviously in an American sense. So we are at the end of our talk, and I would really like to thank Dr. Orbán. I have greatly appreciated your participation.
Thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity. Good luck for your country and institutions. And take care. Hope we see each other.
Thank you again, Dr. Orbán. Thanks also to Marcell Dengi and to all the people watching that video live or recorded. So thanks for watching, and see you at the next episode of our broadcast.